Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you're joining us from. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Public Teaching in English for Monday, November 27th, 2017. And today we have Jim and Lisa McDonald with us, along with both Dr. Rodrigo Vadosola and Dr. Gachua Wambogwa. And this is part 10 of Understanding Plasma Science. We'll be covering more advanced information on the health, nature, and the soul. I'm your host, Flint Mulhausen. Welcome, everyone, and welcome, Jim.
Morning, Flint. Morning, everybody. Yes, and we've got quite a full lineup today, so we'll start by handing over to Dr. Rodrigo.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Flint. If you'll allow me to share the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, and welcome all of you on this workshops series of health. Today's number 10. Today, we're going to discuss a little bit of patches, rings, how to make them, to use them as well, and food, how to make GANS of food and GANS of medication as well, of medicines, so how to use a pen and on health. So we're going to start with GANS. In order to make patches, we're going to start with the basics of these elements of this GANS, starting with zinc, CO2, copper oxide, and CH3. This is the one we started to use. And remember, when you collect those, when you make this GANS, do not forget to collect the amino acids of every single one. Yes, those amino acids is CHNO, is carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. Yes, in every single one you collect those. And even though they are the same amino acids, but are in different strengths. So it's going to be a specific with every single GANS that you make. And this is the one you're going to make the connections to your body, to your cells. So that's why you have to include it when you make patches. You have to include some of those amino acids. When you add the water GANS, when you make patches, sometimes at the beginning you start using the water, but then when you get more knowledge and understanding how to use these GANS for different conditions, you will start using GANS as well. But in all the time, you have to add a few drops of amino acids on that. So we're going to start with this GANS of CO2, zinc, CH3, and copper oxide. Each element matches with field strengths in the body. Carbon is a connector or the communicator, which is in every single cell of the body. And oxygen is a gravitator. So it helps to absorb as well elements in the body that it needs. Hydrogen is an energy giver. The zinc has the field strength of emotions. You will understand in the future how to use this in all the patients. In every single patient that as you remember, we discussed how the emotions are involved in every disease. So we're going to use this element on every condition, every thing that a patient, every problem that a person have, you're going to use it. So the copper is connected to the physical part. Mostly, you understand, it works on the muscles, but also it has some other applications as microstatic and microsite is like use it for antibiotics, helpful to control some infections. But this is there's a lot of application of these elements, but at least you have the basics how to use it and how to understand the use of these elements. The way we make patches, we need a kitchen paper towel, just a little piece, food saver, that the plastic in order to seal it, to put it inside, and the sealer. You can use any sealer. I have this an example, but you can use it. Basically, when you have the paper towel, you have this, you have a little Ziploc. I personally will put it in 2 bags in order to keep it inside. We use different sizes of Ziplocs. So we put them inside, and then we add with the syringe a little bit of the water of the GANS that we want to use it. Once we put them inside, I check if this bags are sealed. Most of the time, those bags are not sealed completely, so I use a little glue on this edges in order to keep it inside. Then when it's inside, as I said, put a little glue on the other side, and then inside the paper, the plastic sealer they use for food, put them inside and seal it. But remember, every time they use GANS, I use this dropper to add a little bit of few drops of the amino acids when I use it. So after that, you have those patches. You can make it any way you want it, but this is just a basic, just a way to do it. Then you put a little tag knowing what kind of a GANS you make. Very important thing, when you make those GANS, those patches, do not save them, do not store it in the same place, all of them, because it will interrupt the fields, it will change the fields. As you remember, when we explained about the fields, we had to keep it separately, each and every one of them. So if you have a lot of those a lot of patches, keep in different boxes, different containers away, apart from one in each other. So you can use as an example for those patches, using in a container. You can drink regularly this water with using these patches, because you will hear in the future that we drink, or you're going to start drinking water GANS or plasma GANS. It is a different condition, but do not confuse. You can use these patches to put on the water in the container. Either it's a plastic, glass, or ceramic. You can put those patches and drink it on a daily basis, and there won't be any problems. Always use 2 patches to create a field, to create a loop of fields in between. So interacts one patches on this side, one other patch on the other side, interact those patches, and they affect the water, will change the energy of the water. When you use the CO2 patches, generally for, I put here as general well-being, you will give energy to your body. This elements like basic elements to their body, oxygen and carbon. But when you mix it with one patch of CO2 and the other or CH3, you give, besides that, energy to the body. You feel it. When you drink it, you feel energize your body. And you can test it, you can try it. And another one combination is a CO2 patch with zinc when you want to control the emotions. As I said, do not confuse when we said that in some conditions we drink water, we drink the plasma water, but we never drink the GANS. This is just an example of one of the GANS, but I repeat, and I will repeat over and over again, do not drink the GANS, just the water. You collect the water. When you have the GANS, you can add distilled water, and a few hours later, you will have this water will have the energy of the GANS that you've made it. So the GANS that we have placed in a jar with distilled water, when we want to use some of this water in different applications, we only take the water off the top of the GANS. The water will carry the fields of the GANS. Once you use it, replace just the water, adding more distilled water. And a few hours later, you will have more of this. So I repeat, and I keep repeating, do not drink the GANS. And on any conditions, we don't drink it, just the water on the top. Once you finish this water, you keep adding distilled water, and a few hours later, you will energize this water with that GANS, and you can continue consume this. As I said, in the future, we'll tell you how to use this water. So And another thing, in order to make, once you make those patches, and you can use them as in a patches or in the rings, and you will use it in a different condition. Let's give you an example, and to understand these patches, because with these patches you create a field that will help to remove tissues. I will tell you examples of how to remove tissues or regenerate tissues, regenerate tissues in your body. You want to use it, I mean, you have a condition like a burns, you use those kinds of different combinations of patches in order to regenerate tissues on your body, to protect an environment, to create an environment in order to avoid any problems you will see those or attracts elements. There's different applications of these elements. But you have to understand rule number one when you use plasma. The strongest always feeds the weaker until balance is created. We introduce strong fields to the body that the body may lack, and it absorbs until the fields come into balance. Do not absorb more than you need, as fields always come into balance. So that's why when we use plasma, when we use water plasma, do not drink it as a regular basis. We have a specific condition that you have to drink, and I will give you later the protocols how to use the different plasma water. When we use patches, you will hear very often they use 3-to-1, 2-to-1. What does it mean? 3-to-1 means that you have three amounts of the doses that you need for certain condition. For example, if you have in the future, when you understand more about this plasma using on tumors like cancer, when we have cancer, we have found that the seed of the cancer is involved a metal that attracts all the elements. So if we know what kind of metal is involved, we make GANS of that metal, and we put this patches 3-to-1. We make, for example, if it's a big patch, or like the one you make, and you need, for example, 15 milliliters to fulfill the test patches to keep all the GANS and all the patches, that means in this one, you will have to put 3 times. Okay, let's see. If you put GANS in this condition, you're going to put GANS on this elements are going to be 3 times the amount of the other one. So stronger with a weaker. You create a loop in between, and whatever's in the middle, it will blend to this field that created with the 3-to-1. The stronger and the weaker. You will have more understanding of using those different GANs and on different conditions on the body. As here we have like a problem in the arms, like in the center, like a tumor or something, and you create a 3-to-1, you push 3 on the one side and 1 on the other one. Create a loop of energy in between in order to blend, in order to dissolve this condition in the center. This is the way we use it. Remember, 3-to-1, 2-to-1, to 3, it means that it's 3 amounts of the element that you're using. For example, as I said, if you use 5 cc of any GANS in this one, you would have used 15 cc in the other one. Sometimes we use it's also rings. I have experienced to use ring with the good results. If you use different elements, you can add every single element in one ring, or even sometimes you mix it. 1 or 2 elements in the same ring to create also a field. Like for example, if you want to change a condition in the on the knees, like help to recover any surface like cartilage or ligaments inside the knee, around the knee, you create fields using these rings with different elements, one size and the other one. I always, when I use rings, I put the black zip tie to mark it as stronger than the white zip tie is a weaker. So sometimes you use only proportions 2:1 to put one side of the knee and the other one on the other side. Also, when you have some kind of conditions on your back, you want to help to get the swelling down and help to reconstruct or regenerate some elements in your back. You use this combination, introductory, these elements. Let's see if you have let me show you here. If you have a condition right here and your spinal, you will start using CO2 on this side. If the condition, the effect is on this side, you will split CO2 and CH3 on the other side. But also using these combinations to interact fields in between and create a different condition and help to regenerate or affect that part of your body. This is an example. You can add more patches if you have different conditions, different vertebrae with some lesions, some problems. You can add more patches. On the top, on the top will be CO2 on this side, CH3 on this side and CO2 on the other side. You can add as many patches as you need for this kind of a condition. Also, you can create with this using different GANs, different patches, you can create fields to protect. In the future, you will understand how to, when we make, some people make stones and the kidneys, and you have to protect them, not to create those stones. So you make patches in order to create a field and avoid that conditions that helps to develop those kind of elements inside the kidney. So you create a field to protect your kidneys. As I said, as an example, you will see that this incredible amount of applications that you can use this the scans. We have a condition like arthritis, and you have the arthritis. It means that has a lot of deposit of calcium in the joints, but with this, people when have excess of deposit of calcium also have osteoporosis. That means lack of calcium in the bones. So the calcium, instead of going to the bones to reinforce the bones, going to the joints. So you create patches or rings to pull the calcium out of the joints to go back to the bones. So in the future, understand that it's stronger. This is using fields, different fields of this CO2 is stronger than the positive. Give an example. Calcium is the strength of the calcium is 40, and the strong as the CO2 is 44, which is stronger. This pulls the fields, pull the calcium out of the joints to bring it back to the bone. So you understand, remember when I told you how to understand the strength of every element, you look for the atomic weight of every element, and you add it, and you will see how strong this field is, and in order to see the effect on the body. Also, you help for the pain. A lot of people don't understand what pain is. People think that when you feel pain, like that, if you touched, you hit yourself, like you hit your hand, or you use a needle, you have a, you create a condition that causes a pain in your body, and you think that the body is surrounded by little nerves. In every single millimeter of the skin, we have nerves, and that's why when we touch it with, like, for example, a needle, you put a needle in your skin and you feel pain. And some people think, oh, because we have nerves in every part of the skin that sense the punch, the effect. But it's not. We don't have nerves. Actually, we don't have not even the vessels in the skin and the layers of the skin. The vessels and nerves are underneath the skin, so we don't have any nerves in the skin. So it is not that you're touching the nerves and it causes pain. what happened is now we understand how the body works. It's we have a field. The body is a plasma field. It's a different fields. Every single organ, every single part of your body has a different fields of energy, and flow that energy through your body constantly. So when you interrupt that field with a trauma, with injury, with a tumor, with a wound, you interrupt that fluid, and that's what it causes the pain. So, and we're using different kinds of GANS or pens. We trying to pull back that energy to the flow, and that's when we have results like we have pain in this area because any problems and they block the flow of energy. So we're using the pen, or we're using patches to pull the energy back to the system, back to the flow of energy, and that's why we have relief of pain in the body. That's the way the pain is created in the body. If you have a tumor, because the tumor, yes, it's interrupting the flow of energy because it's blocking a nerve. You can block a nerve, you can push a nerve, or you have a wound, also interrupting the flow of energy. So you use those kind of elements to, as I said, to pull back the energy back to the flow, and we relieve that pain. So we can create those little pens with us, even with the nano coating, the copper wires, any copper wire, any size, it doesn't matter what size you nano coater, you can use just a little one little single wire. You can make coils. You will understand in the future how to make a different ones. You created stronger fields. I personally use this very often to use 4 coils in a center road to create different conditions in the body. I use it for pain, for inflammation, to removing tissues or regenerate tissue. You can use this. If you don't have the big health unit, you can start using this little pens with 4 coils in order to create an environment. You can use this pen with or without patches. If the mix, if you have a patch, you have a condition of some part of the body, you can create patches to bring those elements to that part of the body, but increasing that energy using the pens. So it's just an example. As I said, to use a pen is not a layer pen. It's a tool that interacts with the fields of the body. As I explained, allows to continue that flow of energy. You just pointed the pen, and remember to use those. When you use those pens, put them inside the container, a little tube, glass tube, plastic tube. You can use it. You have to protect it. Do not use. Do not touch the nano-coated wires with your skin. Just protect them in order to create that feel and help you to achieve what you want. I personally sometimes I use this acupuncture zones. I invite you to test this when you have a pen, any pen, and you feel the energy. When you put it in your hand, you feel the energy. Put those pens, the tip of the pen, in every part of your body. You have this guide to know what part of the hands represent that organ. Just put the pen here, like the stomach. You put the pen in the stomach, you feel the energy on the stomach. You literally feel the energy. You will understand more about acupuncture, because whatever you put the pen, you feel the energy in that part of your body. Whatever you feel, sometimes like a problems in your neck you have, so you use this pen representing the neck of this and the fingers. You put it depending what part of your, it's the left side or right side of the neck that have the pain. Use the pen right here, the energy, and you feel the effect on the pain. You will feel that the pain is helping you to release the pain when you use this on this point. Whatever you have, any conditions, just put the pen on that spot, and you have the effect on that body. And as I said, acupuncture. Do not, if you decide, or some of those people who like to use or use it, acupuncture needles for treat any condition, do not use those needles. Do not nano-coat those needles that you're using for the patients. Do not put those. It creates a different field, will affect it. As I said, only use the pen that is protected. You put it on those points, and you have the effects on the body. Now we have. I'm gonna give you an idea how to make food GANs. I have a lot of requests through emails, through messengers, asking me how to create GANs of food. So we have two ways to create it. If you have dry food or have fresh food. So if you have dry food, you can collect a little bit of every single container that you have on this container of food, and use a coffee grinder. So I put this and I create just powder out of this. It's a mix of everyone. So when I have a mix, I would use the GANs of CO2 plasma, not the GANs, just the water plasma. So I will use the CO2 plasma water, and that use this powder in this container, and add just the plasma water in. And a few days later, I recommend to you leave it at least 7 days, just adding the CO2 water, and you have the effects. Remember, as we said, the body is in a plasma state. When you eat, when you have food in your mouth, and as soon as it touches the tongue, as in a field state, it creates that turn that food and plasma and energy, and the energy goes all over your body. Remember the example that I gave you when you're thirsty, you haven't drink water for, let's see, for hours or for days, and you dying for a little bit of water. And as soon as you have a little sip of water, you put a little water in your tongue, you have the effect. You have the effect of the water. Not the way we thought that when you need water, that means that every single cell of your body needs water. You have to drink it. The water has to go to the stomach, then to the blood system, and then distribute every single molecule of water to every single cell of your system. It is not true that way. So it is when you have water, and as soon as it's inside your body or touches your body, the tongue, it turns into energy and interact with the field of energy that you have all over your body. So that's why feel the effect instantly. So that's what we're adding right now, just adding the CO2 plasma water, turn into plasma, and you have the effect of those. If you have fresh food, it is a different ways to do it. If you have you chopped it in little pieces, every single one, you collect them, all of them, vegetables, fruits, meats, beef, anything, you put them in the same container. After that, you can add the CO2 plasma water only, and you will have food GANs. If you don't want to do that, there's a different ways. If you can put it in the blender. You put everything in the blender. Some people said, "Oh, you put it in a blender, it will destroy all the cells." It won't. It has just a little cells are so little that you won't destroy the effect of the food when you put it in the blender. You have collect all the food here. I add CO2 water in order to achieve that liquidity of the food, and then put them in a container. So you put it in the container, you add a little bit more water GANs, it will settle down the food, and you have the one on the top already energized. After 7 days, you energize this food, and you use only the water on the top. You don't drink. I've seen a lot of people that call me, said they create food GANs, they start eating that food GANs. You don't have to eat it. You create already feels energy. You energize that food that you created. You have to just put it inside patches or inside of tubes. You don't have to. You don't eat those GANs of food. And also, some people say, okay, if I make those food GANs, I don't have to eat. No, it's not. We haven't said that you don't have to eat. You still have to eat a little bit because it's a condition created in your body. It will take time to get used to this new fields of energy. Your body will get used to it. It will take time to get used to this kind of energy. Eventually, yes, in the future, we'll avoid to eat anything, just creating better fields of food that you can feed yourself. Remember that we said your body takes out of food just 20% of the energy your body needs, and the rest comes through the skin of your organ sense. So, and in order to, if your body takes the energy through the skin, and so we can create fields of these elements of food that you will absorb this energy through your body, and you are feeding yourself. And some people also said, so we're going to be on diet. This is not diet. Remember, we turn every food that we eat, we turn into energy. The food doesn't doesn't cross the barrier of the stomach or intestine, just the energy. We're not on diet when we use this species. Just create this field. We have a shortcut to instead of eating and allow the stomach to change this to energy, we change this previously and we use those energies. As I said, we can create patches on, and if we have a patches here, you put the patches. Remember, you put the patches on your back, on the stomach level, and the CO2 in front of you. You create a loop of energy in between. That's why you feel those energy inside the stomach. All the elements that your body needs, it will create that field inside and absorb those energy. This is the best way to use those again. Sometimes you can use you can create GANs of every single element, GANs of meat, GANs of vegetables, GANs of fruits, and you can put in different container, a little bit of those GANs in every container. You create a field around that, and whatever you put inside the water, you energize this water with that. Also, you can use a big container and create as much as you want, little containers with GANs, and you energize. But as I said, now we use it all together. Either you put this little vials, as I call them vials, or tubes with plasma food inside the water container. You leave it for a few hours here, 3 or 4 hours, and energizes water. You only drink this water, and it has the energy of every element you put in the food. So everything is going to be here. So you drink the water that is already energized with those elements. So in the future, when you have a kid that you wanted to send it to school, or you go camping, instead of get a lot of food, pack a lot of food to go camping, you can have every single one would have just to add a little bit of food, but mostly you will have a vial of this or patches like this, and you're feeding yourself. So we'll give most of the elements that your body needs. So it's as I said, it's not going to substitute completely the food that you're eating. You will eat a little bit less, and as I said, it requires time to condition your body to a new kind of energy and to feed yourself to this. So it takes time, but it's a way to do it. Also, we can make for all the people that have they invest a lot of money on medications and spend fortunes to get them. So also you can create plasma. This every single medicine that you use. You just grain it. You use like a certain amount. You can use like I use 10 or 20, 20 pills of every single medicine, depending on the size of those. So you put them on this, you use this kind of elements to grind it and put it in a container, and that you add, you have every single one in this one, you're not going to put all together in one. You have a container like this field, like this. Let's see, this one is vitamins, multivitamins. So if you have this one that is vitamins, so you're going to put only this one in a container here, and you are going to add CO2 plasma water. You leave it for a few days, and you have plasma of this multivitamins. So you can use this plasma water as a patches, and you will have the multivitamins. You use this, you put on your in your pocket, and you receive this energy fields of these vitamins. If you have pills, like if I have for example blood pressure pills, this one, and you put this in a different containers with CO2 water plasma. A few days later, you have plasma of this medication. You can make patches of this. We are learning now, and we're in the process of learning how to use those patches. How long do we have to use it? We starting to use it, like for example, half hour a day, and then increasing or decreasing depending on how the effect of this body. As I said, we're learning how to use this medication, plasma of medicine on the patches. So we have to test it. For how long do we have to use it daily? Half hour, 3 times a day, 2 times a day, 1 hour, but not the whole day. Everyone has a different effect. So we start using this. So in the future, we understand how to use this, and so we'll save a lot of money instead of not spending on medications. When you have these medications, you start using, you're going to start making patches, and you're going to save a lot of money, because once you make GANS of this, you keep that GANS forever. You just keep adding CO2 plasma water, not the still water, In this condition, when if you use those multivitamins, the whole water, you create a different patches, and you give them to all your friends or family. You share this plasma, and it says, okay, I run out of this water plasma. You have to add more of the CO2 water plasma here, and then you, after a few hours, days, you have again more of this medication. You can start making more patches to share to another person, to a different people. So this, when you use hand GANS, let's repeat, do not add just distilled water. It has to be plasma, CO2 plasma water, in order to keep making this plasma of any medicines. And you, as I said, you can use the same way the patches that that I taught you before to make the patches for GANS. So instead of using different GANS, you're going to put GANS of medications, and there you have it. You have a different GANS. You start collecting the different GANS of these medications. As I said, do not remove the sediments of the bottom of the jar. That will remain forever. For many, 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 many years. You have this 15 to 20 pills that are remaining here. It will create plasma energy of this medicine. So you don't have to spend more money to have this, in this example, multivitamins. You will have this medication forever. Any questions?
Again, as a reminder, you always can raise your hand here. And I see that, yeah, Nicholas is here. Hello, Nicholas. Hello. You can unmute and ask your question.
Okie doke. Good morning.
Good morning, Nicholas.
Hi, Dr. Rodrigo. Thank you. Do you add amino acids to your food GANS jar when you make your food GANS?
When you move, every time you move to make the patches, you add GANS. If you have use food GANS, you add CO2 plasma water, you add amino acids as well to that. Always you add a little bit of amino acids.
And how much?
Just a few drops. You don't need to add a lot. It depends on how much of food you're gonna make, how much, how big the container is. You can add. I mean, remember also the amino acids. When you collect amino acids from the any batch that you make the GANS. For example, you make CO2 on the top. You have the amino acids. You collect them. You put them those on the distilled water. Those amino acids. You're not take literally. You're not gonna take the amino acids. You only when you collect those amino acids with distilled water, the amino acids will energize the distilled water using the water in the middle of the container. You can add, depending of the size of the container, 1, 2, 3 centimeters or milliliters of the amino acids into the container, into the patches, depending how big is the patch or the container. So you add the water, energized water of the amino acids, not the amino acids, but the water that has in the middle of the amino acids. That's as well. When you use this that's amount of the water in the middle, you run out of the water, you add more distilled water. In this condition, when you collect amino acids, you add distilled water. Days later, you energize that distilled water of those amino acids. It's not a dosage, okay, it has to be a certain dosage. No, it's just, if we use those patches to give an idea, those patches that I show you, I use just 1 or 2 drops of amino acids inside of the GANS that I'm using. So if you have a container, a big container or big patches, you add more. I mean, if it's a lot more, if your net patch is using 10 cc's or 10 milliliters of water plasma, you add 1 drop, so you make the count. So you use 100 milliliters of, because it's a big patch, sometimes we make a really big patches, and we need 100 milliliters. You add 1 milliliter of amino acids.
Very good, thank you. So just a little clarity. So we have now made a jar of food GANS or medicine GANS. Do we add a CO2 amino acids to that jar? Or when we make a patch or use it in some way, we add the CO2 amino acids to the patch?
Either one. You can add the amino acids straight to the jar that you have the amino acids, that you have the food GANS or the medicine GANS, and the jar you can add it, or you can add it in your patches. Either one are correct.
Very good. And then the next question is, when you're adding a little bit of GANS to your jar that you're making a food GANS in, or a medicine GANS, you're going to add a little bit of GANS. How do you draw that GANS off of your GANS jar, and how much GANS would you suggest you put into that jar of food GANS?
It's not, it's just plasma GANS. You don't have to use the GANS to add it to the food or the medicine, just the plasma water, the plasma water, the water that's on the top of the GANS. You don't have to add GANS. You can add it, but not necessarily you have to add it. You just add the plasma water that's on the top, and that's it. It's not like traditional medicine, okay, have to be a certain doses. No, just added water. As I said, once you energize the water, I myself, with this big container that I drain it, and I have a lot of food on this jar, and I add I fill it up with CO2 plasma water. I stir it every single day because it remains on the bottom, and the water doesn't go. It doesn't I would say cover or affect every single drain. So I stir it, I check it every single day, or sometimes twice a day. I check it in order to touch every single particle of those foods with the GANS water plasma. I stir it, I check it every single day or 2 or 3 times a day in order to energize every single particle. And then after 7 days, I have that plasma. As I said, once you use that water, you keep adding CO2 plasma water. This is it's not about how many. If I have 10 milliliters of GANS, I have to add 10 or 20 of water GANS. No. You just create the conditions to energize the water. As long as you have enough water to cover the whole food, it is enough. But you want to have a little bit more in order to use it, because you're going to keep that sediments or that elements inside the CO2 plasma water. So you're going to add more. This is not like a regular medicine. You have to be a specific amounts of CO2, specific amounts of the medication. No, forget about that. Just adding, just in order to cover and a little bit more, and just shake it, and you energize every single particle of those elements. You energize it, and that's it.
Thank you.
Use the logic. I mean, if you have just a little grain, you're not going to use a gallon of CO2 water for a few grains of that medication. I mean, we have to use the logic, how to use certain amounts, but it doesn't have to be a specific condition, specific doses of every element.
So, and just to clarify, you're always using a patch, or you're putting it in a little vial and using that vial to energize water. You're never drinking it or anything, and that way it allows the body to take what it needs.
Yes, you don't ever drink the GANS that you make, the food GANS or the medication. You don't drink that drink the GANS of medicines or GANS of food. You don't drink it. I've seen people that says, yes, on regular basis I drink my plasma water that I make of food. You don't have to drink this. Remember, your body is in a plasma state. You give him energy. You energize already the food. It's like if you eat it and the food goes to your, as I said, as soon as it touches your mouth, it started to turn into plasma. And once it reaches the stomach, it turns into plasma. So we making a shortcut. Instead of going through all the process from the mouth to the stomach and turn into energy, you turn it already to energy. Just a patches, and your body is an energy field. It has an energy field. You put those patches in your body. As I said, if you want to have a better effect, put the food water plasma patch on your back, behind your stomach, on your back, and one CO2 in front of you. Create a loop of fields, a field of energy, and you will receive more of this energy. But also, if you use a vial, you put the vial food on the water container, you drink the water, you have the effect. But as I said, you wanted to have a better effect, put the patches in your back, on the sides of your stomach, one in the back and another patch in front of your stomach, you have better effect. So see, you're gonna go to work. You can put your patch. You create a package, a pocket in your shirt or in your jacket. You put your patches when you go to work, when you go to school, and you're feeding yourself. Remember, in that condition, your body will take whatever it needs. So you're given the elements the body needs through those energy fields of the food. Do not drink the GANS of food or medicine.
And also the field flow is always going from your back to the front. That's why you put the food patch in the back, correct?
Yes.
Okay, we have we have quite a few other questions. So
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Boniface, go ahead.
This is Boniface. Good morning, Dr. Rodrigo.
Good morning, my face. Boniface.
Thanks for your presentation. It was very helpful. I had read somewhere that you could also use caustic soda or sodium hydroxide in the process of making food GANs or even the medicine GANs. Do you recommend that, or can you comment on that?
Yes. At the beginning, we started using caustic in order to make GANs of food and GANs of medication. But there's an echo.
I'm sorry, I'm going to mute myself.
Okay, okay. So at the beginning we used that, but sometimes we see that the caustic is still in. Not all the people washed off that caustic out of the food or the medications, and we understand. We use in the beginning to understand the process. When we eat, normally when we eat, we thought, okay, when we have a general understanding of the process of making energy out of the food, we get to the stomach, and in your stomach you have chloric acid, and you turn to energy. So we had that effect. So we use caustic to have a set effect. But when you understand a little bit more about the process of energize the food in your body, we understand that the food, as soon as it touches the mouth, the tongue, with all this fluid that you have in the mouth, you turn into plasma. So now we are more specific. So we're understanding more about a little bit of this process. So we don't have to go through using the caustics. Somebody use the caustic, it's okay, but you want to be more specific and clear and not having those caustics in your body, because sometimes you always put those caustic inside the patches because you don't watch the caustic out of the food. Those elements remain in that food. You put them in the patches, you receive those elements. So now we understand more about the process of energize the food through your body. We don't have to use those. We don't have to use caustic to create GANs of food or GANs of medication. As I said at the beginning, we did it to understand the process, but now we understand as well the process of energize through your body. So we're doing now that using only CO2 plasma water. We energize the food and medicines.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Monica.
Hello. Can I? It's
Yes.
Mernas. I live in France. Thank you very much for this precious information, like always. And I have a question. Do I have to wash amino acid? Like when I take it, zinc or Cu, or do we wash the salt and caustic?
When you make the GANs, you're saying when you make the GANs, you wash the salt water? That's the question?
Amino acid, when I take the amino acid from on the top of my...
Okay, I understand your question. No, you don't have to wash those. When you collect the amino acids with the spoon, you bring a little bit of the salt water with that. You don't have to wash those. They will settle down on the bottom. Some of the amino acids will settle down the bottom. Some of them will remain on the top, on the surface of the water. That's why when you put those on your container with distilled water, you don't have to wash those amino acids or remove that salt. As I said, they will settle down on the bottom. That's why we take only the water in the middle. The water in the middle between the surface, which some of the amino acids will remain, and some of them on the bottom with salt amino acids will remain on the bottom. So you only take the water in the middle, energize. You don't have to wash that amino acids.
Thank you
If
very
it's
much.
a little bit of salt water, it doesn't matter. It won't affect.
Yes. And also for creating a loop, should it be back and forth, or can it be left and right? Like I put a CO2 patch left side, and then fruit patch or zinc CO2 on the right side.
Well, remember, if you have the patch, if you have the patch for food, you put the food on the left side and the CO2 on the right side. In the middle, you have the liver, you have other organs. You want to create a field in between those patches, which is who's going to receive those energy. is going to be the stomach. You want to create that feel in the stomach.
Exactly. That's true.
You can use, even if you use those patches, you put on your pocket, in your pants, you receive the energy through that as well.
Mhm.
You put just a food patches and you carry in your pant pocket, you receive that energy of that food. But as I said, if you want to create a stronger feel, you want to feel yourself better, you put patches of food behind your stomach and the CO2 in front. You create a loop of energy, and when you energize, you will have those energy, you're feeling yourself better.
Right.
As I
And-
said, if you carry your patch on your pocket, you feed them as well. But as I said, there's a better way to feeding yourself.
Thank you. And also,
Okay.
when I make zinc and CO2 patch for the asthma, for example, if I put it 2 in front or sometimes over the acupuncture point under the shoulder, can I put one in the back, in the center of my back, over the in the center of my back?
And your spinal?
Right up, like in first or second dorsal, because there are acupuncture points also for us just on the back, the 2 sides of the dorsal spine. There are 2 acupuncture for asthma. Can I put just 1 big in the back and 2 in left and right shoulder? Does it work if it's not exactly behind? It's a middle, and then this one is in the right.
Let me understand your questions. If you have asthma, you can use patches of CO2, zinc and CO2. You can add. You can make a big patches that cover the whole back, not in the spinal, but on your lung, one side of your lung and one side of the other lung. So you can put 1 patch in your back on your lungs and another one in front of your lungs, and then another patch on the right side on your back and one in front of you.
Right. So it would be 4 or 3. It would be 3. 2 in front and 1 in the back. A big one.
No. As I said, you can use 2 patches in the front and back, and 2 patches in the one. I mean, yes, 2 patches, because one is in the right side and one on the left side as well in front. One on the right side and one on the left side, but not in the middle.
Oh.
Your lungs are on the side, so you put 1 patch behind and another one in front of your chest, covering the lungs.
So it should be in front, 1 in front of the other.
1 behind and 1 in
behind,
front.
1 in front.
On
Thank
the
you.
left side, and 1 behind and 1 in front and the right side.
Thank you. And should I put a drop of amino acid in zinc and the CO2 patch?
Every time that you make a patch, you want to make a connections with your body, with yourself. So you have to add amino acids in every single patch that you create. If you create a patch of zinc, you're going to put amino acids of zinc. As I said, all the amino acids is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, but it's a different strength. So you have to add those amino acids in every single patch that you make
And
to make the connections to your body.
when I make it for others, what I should put amino acid also? No, for others when I make patches.
Yes, every time if you make patches for yourself, or you make patches for your friends, or you make patches for your family, every single patch you create, you put amino acid, the water plasma GANS and the amino acids. Yes, let's see if there's, as I said, if there's a little patches, or you need 15 milliliters of plasma water to fill to wet the whole towel. You add 1 or 2 drops of those amino acids, and you seal it, and you can give it anybody you want, your neighbors, your family. You can use it. You can give it those patches to everybody. But always add amino acids in every single patch. If you create a patch of zinc, you add amino acids of zinc, not of CO2.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Also, when you make a patch and give it to somebody and they use it on their body, that patch tunes itself to that person's body, so it would be best for them not to share it with somebody else.
Yes, yes. I tell them this. Thank you very much.
Okay, next in line.
Rodrigo.
Yes, John.
Hello. What about when you make meat in the water GANs, that food GANs, doesn't the meat rot in the water?
What I do, no, but what I do in order to avoid contamination of that,
rotting, yeah.
I add a drops of copper oxide. If I have a big container and I might have started to create some kind of fungus on the top or some effect, I add a few drops of copper oxide inside the container in order to protect that.
Good.
Thank you for reminding me that, John.
Thank you.
As John said, sometimes when you create this food and a few days afterwards, you're starting to see a little growth of fungus on the top, said, yes, it's a contamination of that food. So in order to avoid that, when you have a big container, you add the still water, not distilled water, it's CO2 plasma water on the food. You add just a few drops of 1 or 2 drops of copper oxide inside of that, and you protect against any growth of infections, bacteria, or fungus.
Okay, next I think was Hassan. Hello, Hassan, you there?
Yeah, hello.
Hello, Hassan. Yes, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your teaching, Rodrigo. It's very helpful. I just need to ask a question, maybe 2 questions. First one would be on the soul aspect. Why is it that when I give pens or paint pads or patches to people which has pain, it works quicker than, like, sometimes it's instantaneous, sometimes it's after 1 hour, after 5 minutes, after 6 hours. But when it's pain on myself, it take more time, like 5 days, 6 days, 15 days sometimes.
Well, depends what kind of a pain you have. What is the condition to create the pain? It's not all the people have. Remember about the pain. The pain is created through an injury, through an object, through a hit, your trauma, through a tumor. It's the condition, how the pain is created is different. So the effect is gonna be different in every person.
Yeah, well, usually on external injuries like bleeding, it works. It take more time. Like abscess. How do you explain abscess, staphylococcus? That thing hurts a lot, and it's not so easy to handle. How do you explain it?
In that condition, you have an infection. You have the condition that's causing, constantly interrupting that flow of energy. So you have to treat that staphylococcus. You have to treat the infection in order to get rid of that condition that is creating the pain. It's like, I'm going to give you an example. You cleaning your house constantly. You clean the house, okay, but it says, oh, how is dirty? All the time it's dirty. Oh, because you left the windows open.
Yeah,
so you had to go to the source of the pain first. It's not just going to the pain. And also the pain. Everyone is a different grades of pain. Some people have pain, like normally you have, okay, I have pain, toothache, and I get one aspirin and the pain is gone. Some people needs a lot of, not just a single aspirin, you need a lot. So as well as this one, the grade of pain and every person is different. Every single one is different. So some people will have the effect in seconds, some people will have the effects in minutes, or some people have it in hours or days. Every person is different. And depends also the condition that creates the pain. If you have infections, you have to go to the source of that, the infection. You have a injury, you have to go to the injury. You helping them to avoid the pain, you release the pain out of that condition, but also you have to treat that that condition is creating the pain.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Hassan.
Hello.
Yes, Pia?
Hello, it's Pia from Denmark. And thank you also again very much for what you're doing.
You're
and yeah, it's so helpful also. I just want to hear, I know you have been talking about, of course, how to make all the CO2 gases and the others, copper oxide and CH3, but I just want to ask you about the CO2 gases, if you can repeat which specific salts you do for the health and which for the food, and maybe it's the same.
It's the same for the CO2 water that I use for food is the same water, CO2 water plasma, or for health. It's the same. You only use the water plasma.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But it's the same.
So it's the same. Can you say the specific name of this salt again?
The salt to create the GANS?
Yeah, the CO2 specific.
Well, you can use different. I use a regular salt. I use. Personally, I have a CO2 plasma or CO2 GANS made of regular salt. I have CO2 water made of using sea salt. I have CO2 made of potassium potassium salt of matter of potassium. I have everything. I test with everything, but but I use it for different conditions. But once you create the CO2 water plasma using any salt that you have created, it's okay. It's fine to use it for food or use it for patches. When you understand more the process of certain conditions in the body, you will use a specific GANS out of that. But it's for specific conditions, different problems. But for food or pain pads, you can use any of those, any salt you have.
Oh, it's just because, you know, I have been making GANSes of the red Himalayan salt, and I also tried directly sea water. And in both cases, I have, you know, other particles, so I wouldn't use this for health applications. So therefore, I really would like just to have a name of a salt so I can go directly to get the most clean salt for the health applications.
Also, some people recommend to, or I think it is recommended to filter the salt water once you've mixed it up or use it, run it through like a coffee filter first to take out any particles that might be in there before they get into the whole system. Go ahead.
But some of those could already be dissolved. The best salt that to make GANS for food and so forth that Shander recommends is it's sodium chloride. You just search for sodium chloride in your store search or whatever on Amazon or eBay or whatever, and it's the lab grade 99.9% pure sodium chloride.
Ah, okay, yeah, sodium chloride. Okay.
Yeah, and it's called lab grade or usually something like that. And it says not for table use and stuff like that, but it's the best, you know, because it's 99.9% sodium chloride.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, it's important that when you use salt, regular salt that has iodine. So do not use salt that has iodine in it.
Ah, okay. So we have to look for the declaration on this particular, yeah. Yeah, it's just because I have heard that you can use calling normal salt, you know, but it was specific this name I was out to get. So thank you very much for this.
Yeah, because a lot of the salts out there also have many other different minerals in there. And whatever you make a GANS of, we'd be making a GANS of those minerals too.
Ah, yeah,
Yeah, I
that's right.
think the Himalayan is high in iron. That's what gives it.
Oh,
its-
there could be 70 different elements in Himalayan salt.
Right, and I think that's one of the ones that was not recommended at one of the
Yeah.
earlier workshops. Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
There are other sea salts which are considered to be more pure.
And there's another product called Real Salt, which is very similar to Himalayan salt, the pink stuff. So that's, again, not recommended simply because you'd be making GANSes of all the other elements in there.
Yes.
Hello, this is Mario. Can you explain why not to use the iodine? I thought that's the field strength of the soul, so to speak, or whatever. That why? Or what is your understanding of that?
You add in different elements inside the GANS. You added those elements, whatever element you use, that's what you have to use. The purest salt water, as Sandra said, that's the 99% pure, you use in that. Otherwise, you're going to add all those elements inside the CO2 plasma water. You create the different fields.
Dr. Rodrigo, this is Gatwa. Some countries only sell iodized salts. Like I've tried to find salt here that without iodine, I've never been able to find it in Kenya.
You can try pickling salt. That usually does not have iodine.
Well, when Mr. Keshe first pointed out that the field strength, it's not the same as the iodine that you get. So I can understand that. But that the field strength of the soul was approximately iodine field strength. So, I mean, I went out of my way to make a GANS with iodized salt at first, you know. I'm just, any comments about that? Is it maybe it's not the right field strength? So I'm not sure I understand.
I would say if, like Gato said, this is the only salt they have, you use it. You can use that, any salt you create CO2, you're going to use it to use that water plasma to create food, to create pasture. You can use it. If you don't have any, you can use that one. It's just a little, the strength is a little different. The energy strength or the condition of that salt is going to be a little different. And as I said, we're learning how to use a different kind of salts, using to see the different effects on the body. We're in that process of understanding how to use the different ones. But if you don't have any other, you can use it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, but I mean, your body's only going to take what it needs and not what it doesn't need, right? So is there really a different effect when you use the different salts?
Yes, that thing that your body will take whatever it needs, it's a little tricky, because one of the things that also when you make food, if you want to create GANS food, and that you have to check on the container of that food if it has aluminum or it has lead or it has mercury. Some of those have those elements, and you add it to those food. And if you create food out of those or GANS out of those food, you have those elements as well. It's not that, okay, the body will take whatever it needs. Yes, but if you have those elements will affect your body as well. So it's not just that specific as, oh, your body will take what it needs. No, if you have a different condition, will receive some of that condition as well. If you have like the proper elements that your body needs, your body will take what it needs. But if you expose your body to different environments, to different strengths or different elements, your body will take those elements as well. As I said, we have to be clear of this, where your body takes whatever it needs. If it's in the right condition, it's like outside. Why we create those health units? Why? Because we created a different environment, because outside in the environment that we live in, there's a lot of pollution. Your body taking all those pollution out of those environment. So you're receiving those elements, those energy elements of those that are in the pollution, you receive those. That's why it creates an imbalance in your body, start creating diseases. So this health unit that we're building is creating an environment, a pure environment that your body will take whatever it needs and the proper condition. So you create like a food GANs of something that are perfect, or all the elements that your body needs will take, or your body uses, it will take only what it needs. But if you add different elements on that, you will take those elements in your body. It's not that you have a sun on your skin, oh, I will take only what it needs. If you have those elements, the proper elements in front of you, yes. But if you have other ones as well, that will come to your body. So we have to be careful about that concept of your body will take whatever it needs. As I said, only if those elements are proper, those elements are that your body needs in that moment. Or is in that environment, all those elements are in the environment you are in, your body will take what it needs. But also
we have a question on a live stream that relates to that, and it came up earlier from Gunther. How can I know what sort of food plasma the organism needs? What food? In other words, how would someone know what kinds of food GANs to even make to start with, perhaps?
Yes, okay. You have, let's see, as I said, when you get the box of any food, you have to check the container of that box if it has different elements. As I said, some of that food contains different elements like lead or mercury or aluminum. It comes with that. So you have to be careful what kind of food you are using to create plasma food. Because whatever element that food has is going to be in that GANs that you're making. So you have to be careful if it's a food that is contaminated with mercury, you will put mercury in that food as well.
But how do we tell, like, how do I tell, gee, I think I need magnesium today? Like normally we wouldn't do that, but if I was in the grocery store, I might go, oh, I need some leafy greens today. I wouldn't be looking for magnesium necessarily, but my body just knows which food that it needs at a certain time. Is it that way in selecting the food GANSs as well?
Okay, when you have the food, you have all the elements, as I said, when you have the proper element that your body needs, let's say, we are made of 25 elements. You have the food that's 25 elements, but in the condition in the moment says, you said, okay, part of my body, because I have to regenerate some of my tissues in my body, I need magnesium. Yes, you have the food, you will receive the magnesium out of that food. But you have all conditions, every element. That's when you said that you can apply. Your body will take what it needs out of that. Because you have the pure elements and that food that you create and that GANs that you created. You receive those elements. You need, okay, I need potassium. You will receive, you get the potassium out of that energy field that you create out of that with that food GANs. Whatever elements your body needs, you will receive it when you are close to them. But as I said, if you add and that's elements, other ones that your body doesn't need, you You are given those elements to your body. You expose your body to those elements.
Dr. Rodrigo? Dr.
Yes?
Rodrigo? Hi, Jalal here.
Yeah, Jalal, go ahead.
I would like to add two things, if you allow me, please.
Yes, go ahead.
If you work with the plasma, you need to understand one thing. Plasma give and take. If you make a food GANS and you drink it, that you dictate the condition. Whatever in this water, you will receive it all. That the body, it will not reject anything. But if you work with reactors or pens or any other condition outside the body, that means the body will take what it's need and gives what it don't need. Only this is the condition. Whatever you make, if you make a GANS for food or to drink it, that this will dictate the condition. Everything will come to your body. It will affect it, especially in a good way. But the other material, what you are put it with the food GANS, it also the body will take it because it's sort of energy, packages of energy. It's the same thing of anything else come with the diseases, with the cancers, with everything, because it is energies. But there is one thing, all of us, maybe now we begin to understand it. Anything you take, you need to thank it. Look, if you bring someone to work to you, before it work to you, and when he sees that you are a good person, you will thank him for what he's doing, and you will appreciate what he's doing. He will do it in the best way because he feel it. So whatever you do, especially with the plasma, and you know what, before the plasma, why we get sick? Because this food, what we are consuming, it came from a sort of use of this energy source. We didn't thanks that this chicken give us its energy. We didn't appreciate that, and we didn't take care of the soul of this entity, that when she give it with all love and respect, and this one will not ever harm you. That's why in the plasma science, you need to know something very, very important. Whatever before you do that, your attention, it goes before you. So when you making pens or making anything with the plasma, or making food or making anything, your attention, where it will goes. Like Hussein, just I heard him, he said, when I do it for the others, it's work. For me, it didn't, because it's the intention, what you needed from it. That is the thing, what is capture us from everything. And even if you are graduate in this thing and you understand it, you don't need to do plasma. You don't need to do any CO2 and zinc and that, because your body is that. Anything you see, anything you touch, if you thank it and appreciate what it gives you from energy, directly you will change it, directly, without, because you are a GANS. You are full of plasma, of gases. You don't need to put the water in it to change it, to take the power of the plasma. Yourself, if you understand that you are, when you touch anything, when you see anything, when you even visualize anything, it will change. You are the changer. So change began. Change yourself. Thanks for everything. And you will see, if you thank this, breathe what you are breathing now, in 1 second, if you thank it, whatever is inside, it's not only oxygen, hundreds of thousands of another elements. If you thank it, really thank it from your heart, you will see it will change you for better. Because now He will give you his energy with the love. He will give you the all energy without fear, because you appreciate it, you take care of it, and you consume it in a good way for the benefit of the totality. Thank you, Dr. Rodrigo. I think that was in my mind from 2-3 days. I wanted to share it with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ole. Yes, when you understand that all this process, as I said many times, this is I would say that this technology is also training devices to understand that we can change anything, we can create everything, any environment around ourselves. But not all the people are ready for that understanding. So we have to introduce a little by little the kind of elements to them understanding that process. As you said, Jalad is absolutely right, but it requires more time to understand this plasma technology. Thank you. And this is going to be part of the next teaching of understanding a little bit of your intention, how you can change the environment, how you can change the results, the outcome of this using these elements. Thank you, Jalad.
Hello.
Yes,
just want to, Gerald, it was really nice. I appreciate what you said. Perfect. Because I just found out I was 10 days angry because I was angry. My mother, which was criticizing me for nothing, because she thinks she's encouraging me, and I was 10 days angry till today. I found that because of her ingratitude, which I was angry. Now I feel good. So I think with our family and people around also, we have to thank the good things they have, and they would feel better for us, for also for our parents and things like that also. And it really worked. It really works. I guarantee you. That's true. We have to thank everything good about maybe ourselves and others to have a better feeling in life and better energy. Really energy, gives energy also. Thank you very much. Excuse me.
Thank you, Vernas. Just to understand a little bit more about this, yes, we have heard that. We have heard many times say we are energy fields. We are a plasma fields. And that plasma field energy, that energy field that we have around the body changes constantly depending on your condition, depending on your state of mind, depending on your emotions. That changes. And there's a lot of devices that can prove that those energy fields around your body changes. So the same way, when you mix, you have CO2 GANS, and it has a specific energy, and you have another container with zinc GANS, so it has a specific energy. And if you mix them, you put all of them in the one container, it's no longer going to be a zinc energy or CO2 energy. It's going to be a different energy. So when you create GANs or you create any plasma devices, if you are in that condition, you are in the condition of give love, to give to your intention of healing people, helping people, that energy field will interact with the fields of those GANs that you're making. So that is going to affect, that's going to have effect on those people. Your energy, you're putting your energy inside those elements you're creating. You understand the next teaching that will put a little bit of some slices, explain a little bit more deeply about this condition, how you can change the effect of this any element that you're creating. Thank
Hello,
you.
all together. This is Klaus from Austria. Hello. I agree 100% with you. What we do the next time is to bring more and more conscious in this game. And with this little breathing, what we do the last time, we see how easy it is to build together fields. And when we are in these fields, then we trust more and more ourselves. And as you said, the environment, all what is around us had an effect on you, on me. I see this. I can protect myself how I can. And when I be in strong fields, especially radioactivity or chemistry or some electromagnetic fields, they harm me also. As long as I have I'm not so in this that when I have a little bit fear in me, then I close this thing, and then these things harm me full. When I've been fully open, then all goes through me. I feel this, but it harm me not. And this is the game what we have to play, that we see what we do and what things we bring in the GANSes. Yes, as you say, when we bring some things together, it's not CO2 and zinc. There's so much different fields, and the body doesn't know what it is. You bring it in, and he had to play with this. And some things are good, and some things are not so good for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Klaus.
Hello again.
Hello, Pia.
It's Pia again. I also want to add very much what you said, Klaus. I have not been using the crystal cells for the health applications, but the work I have been doing with the GANSes from the beginning, from all the start of the nano coding, it was really strong because of the intention and the feeling about it, and that made it to be very positive, because I can feel and I can see the fields are affecting the whole environment, and in a good vibration, and everything is like getting more balanced and more strength, of solid centering, or whatever you can call it. It's just feeling more balanced, everything. So it's a great experience, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Pia.
Yeah.
Hello, Dr. Rodrigo.
Hello.
Thank you for all the precious information you are giving us. I would like to ask you something, please. I'm Frederick from France. And you said hers, we have to store patches in different places so they won't interact together. So I wanted to know if it's the same thing for bottle of GANS,
Well, if you have bottle with GANS, you can keep it in the same place because it has a GANS energized. But if you have only plasma water, let's see, you have one gallon of CO2 plasma water, 1 gallon of zinc plasma water, 1 gallon of CH3 plasma water, only plasma water, not GANS on it, you not store it in the same place because it will interact those fields in between and change the energy. As I said, when you make those, when you put two fields together, you create the different fields. But if those containers have a GANS on it, they won't be affected.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We have a question from the live stream from Jeremy, who asks, Mr. Keshe talked about a specific setup of GANS boxes for health, mimicking the layout of the body. And can this arrangement be simplified and put into a diagram at some point? Guess he's looking for maybe like a blueprint drawing or something of the box. I think it was what was it, 4x6 arrangement?
Using different boxes, yes. In order to use that, you have to understand what elements you need for a specific organ or for a specific part of your body. It's not that you create. This is not you playing with different ones, depending on the condition of the person. It's not just one setup. Okay, I'm going to create this blueprints of this GANs. I'm going to use it and I'm going to change. You change it constantly. You create the different ones. Once you understand what kind of elements you need for a specific part of your body, you change it.
Would that be for MD type person or someone that's quite advanced in the teachings to be doing that then?
Yes, you have to understand a little bit more how to use this GANs, how to apply this different GANs on a person. As I said, this is basics. We given general information to people. In the future, yes, we're gonna explain how to use those boxes with different containers, with different GANs. But you have to understand how the body works, what kind of elements your body needs in order to put on that boxes, and you increase or that energy on that GANs that you're making in order to use it on every person. It's not like one setup for everything. It's not that way. This is understanding. We're hearing many times from Mr. Keshe, with all respect, that says, you make this, create this unit and you will heal everything. And we're building, some of that we're building. And we see that it's not healing everything, but it's understanding. If Mr. Keshe says, oh, make this one, it's one part of the system. You're gonna create in the future more in order to get results. Not all the people are gonna build it. He understands us. Mr. Keshe is a very smart guy. He says, yes, make this one, you will be able to heal. Oh, we're starting to build it, this one. Oh, we build the coils with the rings and that. Okay, we make it. And then he gives the next step. But he has to see us that we're making something in order to give him more information. He understands the people, and I see this when you give the people, you said to people, if you create this unit, it's one step out of 5 or 7. I'm not going to make it. But if I tell people, oh, create this unit, you will be able to heal yourself with this unit. They'll build it. Okay, you build it. Okay, now you need a little bit of this or that. So we have to understand the mind of humans. They're tricky minds, and you have to give them the information in a way that we have to stimulate them to create something. And I've seen people that creating this unit say, hey, I haven't healed myself with the unit. Mr. Keshe says that. It's part of it. As I said, we create an environment. I tested, I built the unit coils, the rings, the reactors, different one. But I understand Mr. Keshe, the way he said, he's a very smart guy. The way he provides information, we have to start doing something. Even this here, not all the people have built in all the stuff. We are in the field and the medical groups, and not all the doctors who are in the group have created that units. But you have to understand the way the information is given. As I said, to set up, to use those boxes with the specific GANs and use it, have a blueprint or using that we're going to be able to use in every single person. It is not. But you have to start making them in order to understand that process. Once you understand, you're going to start playing with that. And you understand how the body works, and you're going to start change. Okay, I have a setup of 20 boxes or 30 boxes, and now I understand how it works. So now I can change it. I understand this, so I can make changes. Yes, you can make changes, but you have to understand the whole process first. It makes sense? Will this answer that question?
I think you did. Yes, that does make sense to me.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay, I'm trying to see if there's any other questions here. I don't see in the chat, or I think we've addressed them in the Q&A. There was one question from Coco who asks, I'm not clear on the question, it's something about is there any inconvenience to use a food GANs made with caustic, even though it's washed a dozen times? So the question is a little bit broken up. I think it was lost in the translation there. I think what they're saying is it okay to use a food GANs when it's washed a dozen times when it's made with caustic.
Yes, you can use it. If you're really careful to watch that caustic, yes, you can use it.
And again, it's generally you wouldn't use the even the GANS water from that, but you would use the fields from that, from what you create.
Exactly. Yes, people think that because they create plasma, food plasma, they drink in those plasma. You don't. Again, you don't drink the plasma that you create out of food. Because people are confused that when we start saying that we start drinking the water plasma of CO2, the water plasma of zinc, the water plasma of CH3, this is a different thing, different. So if we create plasma food, it doesn't mean we're gonna drink the plasma food GANS. This is a different thing. It's not the same. So when you create plasma food, you make patches or you make vials, but you don't drink that plasma of food.
Thank you for clarifying that. And I know you've said that several times now in your presentation. So just to be clear for people that is the case, so we don't get people doing things that they probably ought not to. Doug asked, does it make a difference if we keep GANSs in a cupboard or in the sunlight? So does sunlight deteriorate the GANSs? And is that important? Do you have to keep it in those brown colored jars that keep the light out, for example?
I think we need Sanders to answer this question. Or Ulrich.
Well, I think most people don't keep the GANSs in light-proof conditions, really. Although I think I've heard recently that for carrying of the GANS plasma, the plasma water, it's best to actually wrap the whole thing in like a tin foil to keep the fields in so it doesn't interact with other things if you need to send it or keep it somewhere.
But I'm wondering if you wrap it with foil, aluminum foil, that field affect that field of GANS. You wrap it with different elements.
Yeah, you have to be careful of that, especially with aluminum. So I'm not so sure if that's the correct way to go about that.
We have heard from Mr. Guest and also Caroline when he said when the fields at night are stronger than during the day. So if you create GANS in the dark area, will be better, will be stronger fields. So I believe if you keep it, those.
Is it in a dark area or at night? Because we know that the fields of the earth are stronger at night, for example, because there's less pressure from the sun at that time.
Yes.
I'm wondering. Mm-hmm.
So if we
something to that.
So if we create GANS out of the light, the sunlight, you create on the dark area, they might have a different strength. And if you create it and you put those GANS on the exposed on the light sunlight.
Good point. We have a question from Sylvain in the live stream. If we give the GANS of CO2 to a person who doesn't understand or doesn't believe in the technology, is the treatment also effective?
Good questions. Every time that I give when I give a lecture to people, doctors or whatever, the audience that are present, I always said, do not believe everything that I'm going to say, but at least open your mind to the new technology and test it. I've seen people that don't believe in anything, you give them those patches and have the effect. If they don't believe it, it's okay. It's a nice way to prove them the opposite. They don't have to believe. It's not about belief. You understand those energy fields that you created, and you understand that the body is an energy field. Just allow them to test it. If they don't believe, it is a good thing. I like, we're honest, I like to deal with people that don't believe in this technology. I like to talk to them because I will give them something that will test them. They have tested and they understand and they become a believer. So you don't have to believe to have the effect. So I said to people, do not believe, just test it. And they test it and they have result and they accept this technology. It's not about being preached this technology. I don't come to the audience and say, believe me, this is the best way. No, I say the opposite. With saying the opposite, they open their mind and test it, and it will have the effect. You don't have to believe. You will have the effect. Trust me, you will have the same effect on people that believe or do not believe. It's a beautiful technology, understanding
A good example might be with animals. You can have animals that have gotten amazing healing experiences, but they don't necessarily have a belief or a, they're not there with a whole set of in their mind about the technology, already knowing about it or not knowing about it. That's irrelevant to their healing, actually, and they just do better.
Beautiful example. Yes, thank you, Rick. Yes.
Another one might be with plants, for example, that if you see a plant that's growing 40% or 50% better, or even double or whatever from the technology, then it's not because you've convinced the plants to grow better. It's because they're happier with that in that environment, and they just excel.
The fields are right there. You changing the environment, you changing the field. That's the effect of the fields. You don't have to believe anything. The result you will see the result, the effect of this energy everywhere. Animals, plants, people. That's the beauty of it. So I said, the more I more into this technology, I love more. I love it. I enjoy it. It's beautiful, this technology.
Hello. I think that maybe because the plants, they don't resist or they don't expect a miraculous effect on themselves. They just let it go because I myself, for small pains or back pain, I put it without expecting anything, just to see what, and it works. But maybe for some people they expect, okay, they're waiting, okay, when does it work? Or they are suspicious, maybe that's why they don't work. But the animals, the plants, they just let it go and it works naturally, maybe.
Thank you, Vernas. So I think we have to continue with the next step, next teaching from Gato.
Yeah, I was thinking about the plants. I have a relationship to the garden and the plants and the greenhouse that I grow, or the fruit trees around my house, or the bees or whatnot. And if I see a plant that's wilted and I put some CO2 GANS in the water, or spray it, or put a CO2 water jar next to it, I'm having a relationship with that plant. I say, oh, I see that you're not feeling too well. Here, maybe this will help your environment. So I think that relationship and that love that you have for the plants or for the animals or the people in your environment, when you're sharing this GANS with them, that has a great effect. And I sure wouldn't make any effort to just be neutral and say, here, this is, I'm going to put it there, so heal yourself anyway. I think that there's a love and a compassion and let's put it, a gratitude that the person that's administering the GANS to has a great effect on the plants. So, and the plants aren't just plants. They have elementals, they have elemental beings, they have all sorts of other elements connected to them. So there's a totality of love and appreciation and gratitude that we bring to every situation.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Yes, thank you, everyone. We need
Thank
to
you,
move on
Rodrigo.
here now.
It was a lot of good information there for everybody for today.
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, let us continue. All right, so we're going to do a bit of nature today, and Dr. Gatwa, I think you are here. You'll be joining. We'll be sharing this presentation because I'll do a couple of slides, and then Dr. Gatwa will take over. Dr. Gatwa runs the private agricultural teachings with the KSSI in the private student area there. So they focus on all agricultural aspects and trying to develop this technology in agriculture. So Dr. Gatwa will come in just now. What I'm going to do today is just to go through and Dr. Gatwa as well, is we're going through a couple of people's experiments that they've done around the world and just the feedback that we've gotten from people. And it's just a nice to show that from all parts of the world, we're getting very similar results, and it's irrelevant of where we're growing plants. We're getting the same nice results by using the GANSs, and in various using the GANSs in any which way people have been playing with. So I will start off with some of the work and experiments done by fellow chap here in Australia. He lives in Western Australia, Mr. Ross Martin, and he done quite a nice lot of work on that. And next couple of the slides are all his with so there's a lot of information in his slides there. Just in terms of his brief background of his region and where he's growing, it's mainly wheat and sheep production that he's involved in, and it's very hot, dry summers, which is across most of Australia here. And in general, as you were saying, fruit and vegetables are not grown due to lack of water. So what he did was he tried different plasma technology, used it in different ways, and he tried to grow different produce, and these are the results. The first one was with a tomato plant, and what he had done was he had filled different ping pong balls with CO2, CH3, and copper, and so he used just different amounts in each of the balls so that he could form a gradient, so that there would be a flow between each of the ping pong balls. He'd also placed a tube, so that's just a plastic vinyl tube filled with a liquid plasma water as well, and he placed this around the stem of one of the plants, which he said sort of appeared to be growing quite slowly. He'd also hung many of these ping pong balls in his other fruit trees. The one was his pink lady apple tree, and we hung with the ping pong balls. And what he said was the fruit was sweet, juicy, and he produced quite a high yield off that apple tree. Now, a lot of the cases with agriculture, and when you start trying to do experiments in agriculture, it's very difficult to compare. So the only way that a lot of the farmers can compare and give results is based on previous years of observation and yield. So, you know, when somebody notices a difference, statistically, it's almost more than 20% of a difference. Under that, we don't really notice much. So when a farm or somebody notices a change and notices a higher yield compared to previous years, then there certainly has been that change. But as I say, in agriculture, it is difficult to do a direct comparison. Now, this next slide is quite busy, but it's showing you the effects on one of his cucumber plants. Now, in number 1, that's on the top left, there he was showing that this cucumber was sort of, the flower was starting to die, and it looked like that the whole plant had sort of finished its growth period. So he hung a couple of the ping pong balls filled with a liquid plasma all over around the plant there. You can see there in picture number 2. And then when you look down at the bottom, basically what happened was the plant started flowering again. So it almost gave it a second lease of life. And it started growing, new cucumbers were growing, and it sort of reinvigorated that plant. It gave it a second lease of life, and he produced lovely cucumbers from that plant, which he thought was at the end of its life cycle. Now, what he had noticed was hanging the ping pong balls around his tomato plants in the beginning. When you see the next photograph, when it does eventually come through, there you see on the left would have been the tomato plants with all the plasma balls that were hanging. And what he had noticed was that the punckiums growing on the ground in that immediate vicinity around these tomato plants, he noticed that there were a lot more, the color was dark greener, and the growth was far better than further away from that field. So just those ping pong balls hanging around the tomato plant had created quite a nice environment and extended quite far from that tomato plant. And there it grew lovely punckiums there for him there. So it was just noticing the effects of the field, and how far that field interaction and how far it created an environment around those tomato plants. And as I said before, when you're doing any agricultural experiment, you really have to observe, because you might only notice some subtle differences in the beginning. So just be very, very observant with what you're doing and the plants surrounding any experiment that you're doing. So now the other one was on some of the other tomatoes that he was growing, a different variety. It was a Grosselisa tomato plant. And the photograph on the top left was before he had applied any of the plasma. And there's photograph number 2. So he'd placed 5 or 6 ping pong balls all around there, and he had beautiful ripe fruit. Now, some plants showing developing fruit. Now, he had unprecedented success with this plant because, as in his past experience, these plants have always been subjected to wilt and red mite attack. And generally in the very dry conditions like this, the large tomato plants don't grow very well. That was autumn time for him, and the heavy fruit was growing, continuing. So the tomato plant was quite happy to continue to grow into the autumn period. And he was also spraying his plants with the liquid plasma water as well, and was trying to see how far they would develop through into the winter months. He'd also done another variety of tomatoes, and these were the beefsteak tomatoes, also large variety. And again, just hanging ping pong balls with different gradients around it to create a nice flow. And there he had also lovely tomatoes coming through. And as he said in the past, he had very little success in growing this variety in that particular area. So, it just shows that by using the plasma, we're able to now start growing plants that don't generally like to grow in a certain area, are now able to grow in that area. Now, this next slide could have quite a lot of potential opportunities and will certainly require more research. But what it found with fruit fly, which is a very big problem all over Australia and many parts of the world, is that when it attacks the fruit, then the larvae just goes into the fruit, and you just have rotten fruit and can attack your whole crop. Now, what he found was when he picked up some of these apples off the ground, and as you say, he'd cut them through, and you can see it looked like there had been an appearance of the fruit fly attack with the pictures there. And as I said, 2 years ago, it destroyed the whole crop on that particular tree. However, the fruit fly stings are evident, but over 3 days, the larvae have not hatched. So his understanding was that maybe this plasma field had created an immunity to the pest, or somewhere the plasma fields had interacted with that larvae so that they could not develop any further. And the problem with fruit fly in general is when it lays the larvae and the rotten fruit falls on the ground, then that larvae goes into the ground and comes again following season. So it's a year after year problem. But if you're able to do this after a couple of years, one could easily eradicate that problem in your area quite nicely. So this certainly is a big area for research in the future. So the summary that Ross had put together on his experience using the plasma in his farm there was that by hanging different ping pong balls around his trees or plants, and he'd seen a beneficial effect on the fruit production. The plasma of CO2 and zinc mixed with a small amount of CH3 and a little bit of copper produced these results for him. You notice plant growth was accelerated and very healthy within the fields. And also the plants appeared to have enhanced immunity to disease and insect attack. And this we're finding all over the world as well. And plants coming to the end of their production cycle can be reinvigorated to extend their production period. And he said spraying the plasma combined with different methods of ping pong balls or bottles appeared to give the plants immunity to weather extremes as well. Fruit production is dramatically increased and size remains good. So, what he's seen here is quite nice overall changes in his production, and I said it's compared to all the previous years where he's produced. Another short picture here was from a series of pictures from Alex in Canada. And it is what he'd been doing was throwing a lot of CO2 water into a little creek nearby where he lives. And it's very difficult to see on the pictures, but he had noticed quite a change over the several weeks of how he had changed his little pond and the life that was being created in the water and around the pond and the plants and that. And so just by doing those little things around our garden or in the river or stream nearby, it's making quite a huge impact in the environment. So we encourage a lot of people just to go and use the CO2 water into nature and spread it into all these rivers and streams. These were other pictures of his particular plants that he had noticed quite a lot of changes, larger leaves, flowering at different times. So, it's all these subtle changes that one observes, and one can only know these changes when you're growing certain plants for a very long period of time. And then just a quick summary of our experience with the growing tomatoes in winter as well is when we had come to the end of our summertime, we had a couple of tiny little baby seedlings, tomatoes, which we had left over. So I had decided to replant those and see how they grow, also with the GANS in the water. And these were also baby tomato plants, so they don't normally grow very big. The next series of pictures just shows you their growth during the winter time. The first one was sort of midwinter in July for the Southern Hemisphere. And already they had grown quite large, because normally they would only sit, we've tried it before a couple of years to grow tomatoes in the wintertime, and they would stay tiny, very small, look very unhealthy, look very sick, and only start growing when spring came. But these were growing very nicely, even in the middle of the winter. And the most obvious effect to me was how thick a lot of these stems were, and particularly because it was a cocktail variety tomato. So the stems were particularly thick for growth during the winter time. And this was in September, so it was coming out of winter and early, and it had grown immense size during the winter time, and had already had produced lots of flowers. So it had grown entirely during this winter period without any greenhouse at all. And there's just a close-up of the growing tips there, and you can see how thick they are. And so that was very, very a big notice for us as to how strong those plants were. And then in October, we had huge bunches of tomatoes there already, all starting to ripen, and lots of flowers. So this had really taken off during that winter time. So our comment on that one was that we had grown, these plants had grown through winter without being undercover or in a greenhouse, and would have been picking the fruit there end of October compared to maybe December or any January of previous years, which showed to us that traditional planting and harvesting seasons can be extended on either side of your traditional growing seasons, and there's no need for expensive greenhouse infrastructure. And the interesting feedback on this particular tomato plant is that it continued to grow during the December time, and we're picking lovely tomatoes. And then as traditional summer here in Australia gets, when we had a hot period of over 40 degrees for at least a week. And this was just too much for the plant to cope with. And it was quite amazing to watch how fast this plant had just died. Within 2 weeks, the plant had just died. And we had noticed that the tomatoes were perfect and beautiful. There was not one bit of attack by any insects. And then as soon as we had this huge heat change, then almost within days, the whole crop of tomatoes had been attacked by the fruit fly. So, we're still trying to get to understand this, but we're thinking that by creating the conditions and using the plasma around our tomato plants, it had managed to grow throughout the winter. But as soon as we had an extreme heat condition, and as we know, when we experience high heat temperatures, it's a change and an increase in the Maggrav fields, and these were just far too high for what we had created around our tomato plant. And so we had almost a breakdown of that interaction, and the tomato plant just could not cope. So the pest control, which we've seen and a lot of other people have seen, is almost I'll call it an unintended side effect of using the plasma, is because what we've seen and many other people have seen is almost a reduction in the effects of pests on your crop. We used to grow under netting and we don't anymore. All our crops are in the open and we just don't really have a problem of insects and caterpillars anymore. So what you're doing is when you're using the plasma is you're changing the whole environment around your farm. You're making your crop and produce a lot more healthier. It becomes happy. And when you have happy, healthy plants, then you're not going to have a pest problem. So we look at things on a completely opposite point of view now, is that when we start seeing any caterpillar or any other damage on our plants, then we know that our plants are unhappy and unhealthy. And so now we go and then look to find out and start changing things to make sure that they are remaining happy and healthy. So for us, the pests have become our new friends in a way, in letting us know the conditions of the plants as well. So it's a totally different view of looking at the pest side. All right, so I'm going to hand you over now to Dr. Gatwa, and I think you've got these slides, hey, Dr. Gatwa, so it might be easy if you present from your side, because I think you've got better internet than me.
Yes, I'll do that, Jimmy. Thank you very much. I'll just share my screen. Okay, thank you very much for that wonderful presentation, Jimmy and Dr. Rodrigo. I'm going to show just a few experiments that have been done in Kenya. These potatoes were grown in Kenya. I actually grew this. But first, as an introduction, I would like to say that seed soaking in CO2 liquid plasma helps a lot when you grow seed in terms of seed decontamination. So CO2 restores seed to their natural state through magnetic gravitational fields of the CO2, where seeds take what they need and remove what they do not need. You may have adulterated seeds, GMO seeds, etc., and soaking of seed before sowing is recommended. Effective duration of soaking seed before sowing depends on seed size and seed hardiness, with the smaller seeds taking less time to decontaminate, while larger and harder seeds may take longer. A short duration, you may just take 15 minutes. For some seeds, 15 to 30 minutes can effectively decontaminate small seeds, while larger seeds and hard seeds may take several hours. Like if you have potato tubers, I usually go for 3 to 5 hours. There are also some legumes, especially clovers, even alfalfa, have very hard seeds. That means they have very hard seed coats. So we just recommend that you expose, even though these are fields, we are dealing with fields, there may not necessarily be imbibing as such, but it may be necessary to imbibe, for the seeds to imbibe water so that they get the fields of CO2. So some will generally take longer than others. Irrigating field crops with CO2 liquid plasma enhances plant growth and plant health. So after you soak the seeds, or before planting or before sowing, then you can follow in the field and irrigate using CO2 liquid plasma, also zinc oxide liquid plasma, and CH3 is also very good for energy. So that would enhance growth. Those three liquid plasmas are very important for crop growth. CO2 liquid plasma is especially effective as it creates conditions for availability of the amino acid cohon, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, which then enhances plant growth, plant health, and crop yields. What CO2 does is actually the carbon in CO2 contacts is the contact with the cohon in the gaseous environment. So once the connection is made, CO2 has the ability to not only connect to the amino acid, but to bring it close and keep it there in the environment of plants so that it continuously gives to the plant's growth. So the plants tend to grow very healthy and increase yields. These are potatoes that I grew in Kenya, and these are just experimental plots. What we have learned is that if you want to do very good experiments and you are testing whether some, if you're testing GANS, for example, CO2, or together with zinc oxide and CH3, what you want to is that you have to space, you have to have different plots in different places. Like you separate them. Usually in conventional agriculture, the way you do experiments is you grow them side by side and then look for which ones grow better depending on the treatments you apply. Let's say, for example, if you are testing CO2, liquid plasma, and you have a control which you then treat with just water, plain water. Some you would irrigate with water. The other crops you irrigate with CO2 liquid plasma. Now you need to have them separate in plasma. What we have learned out is that plasma extends beyond what one would think, so that if the plots are very close together, the effects of CO2 extends to the crop that is for control. So that if, for example, if you take any of these plots that are on the screen, and one you apply CO2, and the neighboring one you apply water, there will be no difference, because the effects of CO2, the fields extend beyond the boundaries of the plots you see. So we separate plots by at least 10 meters, and we are testing that continuously. So we don't have exact distance that we can recommend, but at least 5 to 10, and then even more. Depends on the strength of the fields. They may, especially if you have rotating cores, for example, that could extend to miles. So the basic thing here to learn is when you're testing, you separate them, separate the fields, keep some distance, and then you can test which one is effective for you, because environments are not all the same. So this crop was very vigorous. I did not apply any fertilizers. I did not apply any chemical sprays. You can see how healthy that crop is. This was just GANS, liquid plasma. Pests, insignificant. Diseases, insignificant. And the harvest, I had actually, these are what you see harvest from two different crops. The one to the left was the first one that I was harvested in February, on February 6, 2016. And then I grew another crop another time in a different place, and that was harvested in November 2016. If you look closely here to the right, you have a lot of tubers in one potato plant. And that was amazing. That shows increased yield. Usually you have 4, 5, 6 big potato tubers, but in our case we had even 20. So that was very interesting. And this was just comparing yields I would harvest and count them and then weigh them individually. And of course, I won't go into details. These are just a technique of collecting data. So that's all I had for Kenya. And then now we move to Italy. Stefania grew parsley using liquid plasma, water of CO2 and zinc oxide. She gave water to the soil around the roots and sprayed the leaves with the plasma water. And this was done for 10 days. And then after 10 days, she left. And when she came back, 2 months later, the plants had grown like 4 times the size before she left, with very large leaves. You can see to the left here, parsley. She was actually surprised. She thought that couldn't be parsley because of how beautiful it was. I mean, in terms of growth, it was very healthy and very big. She thought it was too big for parsley. But then that shows the effects of those liquid plasmas. And then here again, this is Canada. Marcus Volk. He grew pumpkins. And these pumpkins were all supposed to be like the pumpkin first in line, where you see the arrow, the bottom one to the left. But then, and that one has a smooth surface, orange in color, according to the seed package. But then when he grew them with liquid plasmas, they changed. You can see the products above the first one. So they are not very smooth as the first one. They have various colors. So what may have happened? Marcus says all the seeds were treated with plasma water, and the soaking was done overnight from GANSes of CO2, zinc, and what he prepared as CH3, but may as well have been deuterium due to the color he noticed, dark color. He had used magnesium salt, Epsom salt, to harvest the GANSes. Magnesium was used because it gives a very beneficial position for the plant for the production of chlorophyll. Another process that Marcus used was to mix the plasma water in a blender in order to homogenize and increase potency of the plasma water. So if you put this in a blender, you rotate it, you blend it, it releases energy. So it's more energized. The water is more energized. And this way, he says, only a small amount of GANS is needed to make up a large batch of plasma water by adding more regular water to the mix. So those are the various colors and textures of the pumpkins that came from one that should have been smooth and yellow, pinkish. So what may have happened here is very interesting. We can use CO2 liquid plasma to contaminate seeds, but not only that. Where you have mixtures, let's say you have 2 parents, and then you hybridize. CO2 water can revert them to their originals. So if you have a mixed seed, and then you use CO2 liquid plasma, you can generally go back to the mother and the father of the one you planted. And this may be showing exactly that, but tests are ongoing. To summarize, these changes in condition have produced the following results for Marcus: extended shelf life of his food. He grew it in winter for extended seasons, coping with the extreme heat, minimal pest damage, higher yields, healthy, happy produce equals healthy, happy people. So you are not only growing healthy crops, you are supporting healthy people, helping to improve the whole environment in your area for all creatures. So this generally applies to not only Marcus experiments, but all experiments that use liquid plasma. These changes are only the beginning that we have seen and noted. We continue to do more research, and we have barely begun to use and see the full potential. The full potential we have not achieved yet, but we are slowly doing that in agriculture. Okay, and we teach a private class in agriculture, and if you are interested, you can apply. If you are an agricultural practitioner or an expert in agriculture, or you are interested in learning how to apply plasma into agriculture, you may join the private teaching class. This, you write an email to agriculture@kfssi.org. agriculture@kfssi.org. And then, of course, you'll be given more details. And thank you very much. Any questions? That's all I had.
Yes, I have a question here. This is Nicholas.
Yes, Nicholas, go ahead, please.
When you're irrigating or you're watering your garden or your crops, how do you add and how much plasma water do you add and how do you add it?
What I do in my particular case, I have 20-liter containers. So I add the GANS themselves. I don't have specific amounts, but let's say about 1/10 of a small container that would carry half a liter. So GANS, I put the GANS at the bottom and then add water. So the GANS stay in the bottom, they sink to the bottom, and I just take the water above that and then apply that. I don't have a specific measure, but substantial. You put some amount in a 20 liter container or 10 or whatever size you have, and then you add GANS that sink to the bottom, enough to at least cover the bottom. Let me put it that way. That's what I have done.
So it's the actual GANS you're using, not the GANS water.
The actual GANS are enough to cover the bottom of the container used, of whatever size. In my case, of 20 liters. And then I fill it with water and just harvest the water itself, leaving the GANS at the bottom. And I don't have what you call distilled water here. I have tried to look for it. The only one I find is one used for vehicles, batteries, and I don't know whether they have put other stuff in that water. So what I use is usually rainwater. And if I don't have rainwater, then I use tap water, which comes from a river. Yeah, so does that answer your question, Nicholas?
Yes, and it does. And I'm wondering if, say you had a 55-gallon drum and you were to submerge a jar of GANS water, no GANS itself, but just GANS water into that 55-gallon drum, let it sit for 24 hours. Would that water then be plasmified and then use that for irrigation? Or if you're using an acequia, how would you add water into an acequia watering a field?
The best way is to try and then tell us the results, Nicholas, because you can't go wrong with plasma, as Mr. Keshe tells us. So it's always good to try when you come up with such ideas. But I haven't just tried that. I have not tried that. I've used GANS directly, like I explained. But what you said makes sense. I mean, you could just energize the water, just like you use food GANS to energize water. You could argue then that you could energize water using just liquid plasma. But the strength of that energy is what you want to measure. So probably it's stronger when you have actual GANS in the liquid, and then you just take the water from the top. Just like we use liquid plasma ourselves for our own health. When you want to use a liquid plasma of CO2 or zinc oxide, you let it sit, you let the GANS themselves settle at the bottom and take the water above it. And that's exactly what I do with my plants. Any other questions?
I don't see any coming up here. Anybody in Zoom here?
Everybody's run out to the garden and spraying.
Oh.
There was a question, but it was more from the previous section about how long does the food GANS with the CO2 plasma water last? I think Rodrigo answered that with previous to the question, which was that it lasts a very long time. You just keep replenishing the CO2 water on top. And take it from the middle once it's settled. Shake it up and take the water off from the middle part once it's settled out. Any other input on that? Or?
Yeah, the beauty of this technology is, as Dr. Gatwa said, it's open to your imagination. The only limiting factor is going to be your imagination. And when it comes to whether it's agricultural products or health products, it's up to you. Create and play and enjoy and see what happens. You know, there's no formula. It's just try and see what happens. You know, that's the fun part. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Gatwa. And
oh, you're very welcome, Jimmy, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
No problems.
So
right.
I'll stop sharing.
All right. I will leave you and hand you over to Lisa.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to do a little bit of the soul now. And so today we're going to talk a little bit more about how our emotion is the filter between our soul and our physical body, and how we can try and deal with this and start working on lifting these layers of filters between our physical body and our soul. And as we had done before in some previous workshops, we discussed how that the soul is the giver and it just wants to give love. And often when we build up emotions of anger or sadness or hate or fear, it creates a filter between what's coming out and what's going back in. And so we create blockages and we create a lack of energy in certain ways in our lives. And so this manifests in various ways, specifically in the body for a start, by creating an emotional blockage to love from a loved one or some kind of trigger in one's life. our brain can interpret this as in a physical way and manifest it in the body. And organs can reflect certain aspects of one's life and then manifest the cancer or whatever other chronic illness you may have. And so we're a reflection of our emotion and the blockages that occur in our emotion often. And so we need to start having a look at why these things are happening to us and how we need to try and deal with them. So emotion is the filter between soul and physical manifestation. Negative emotional patterns block the soul from giving and receiving in our physical reality. When something is blocked, what happens? The fields can't flow, and now there's a lack. And this lack is, it seems to be what causes most of the problems in our lives. So when we stop giving love, love can't come back to us. Now we're not receiving what we need. And so often now we start acting in inappropriate ways to get some kind of field boost from someone or something else. We often see this in children, and we often remark on it, how, you know, kids just want attention, even if it's negative attention, but often we don't see it, that often we do it as well. So fighting, fear, anger triggers others to give us responses which are fields, but not the right ones that we actually lack. So we'll just repeat the cycle again and again. So now we need to figure out how we can change our emotion to unblock the field flow so that we can restore the balance in ourselves. And this is the first step into rediscovering who we are as creators and giving us the mechanisms to try and start taking responsibility for ourselves. We all tend to react to things, often in an emotional manner. And stepping back and becoming slightly detached about an issue or analyzing it from your, not only from your own perspective, but others, is a really good place to start. When we start analyzing our reactions to things, we often find it's just a pattern and not appropriate to the situation. I started doing this quite long ago in my life, and actually you must not take it too far, because every time somebody would come up with a specific argument, I would always just on principle try to find the opposite side or the other person's perspective on the argument. And this is a really good way to start just standing back and thinking of, but then we shouldn't only think of the opposite, because there are never only two sides to a story either. There are actually many sides to every story. And so we should start just analyzing instead of reacting. When we stop being emotionally invested in the outcome or always being right, whatever that means to you, we start changing. You know, we all have to face up to our own need to be right in things. And this blocks us off to listening to others and hearing what they have to say, because we so want to be right in everything that we do. When we start listening, not just to answer questions, but to understand what the other person is actually telling you, this is really important, because sometimes it's not the words, but it's the idea or feeling. Everything is a field and everything has its own strength. And so if we start actually listening to what other people have to say, everybody gives us fields that we can then use to build ourselves with. And I look at Mr. Keshe and I see it every time somebody comes up with something new. He never ever says no. He always listens, because he always feels he has something to learn from that person and their experience. And this is the one thing we all need to train ourselves in, because it's so valuable to learn from others, and not just waiting to spurt out an answer because now we need to be right about something. So now maybe we can deal with the situation appropriately And now we can give and receive fields you want to. And that's quite a nice thing to do. Understanding yourself and being honest with yourself about your own emotions is the first step in elevating yourself and others. Bringing balance to yourself so that you're not drained by your emotion starts a cycle of harmony within and without, because very strong emotions often drain us of our energy. And that's where we begin to have this lack. So allowing the strong fields of the soul to pour out to others by loving and giving allows the fields to flow back to you. And now emotion is satisfied and the body remains healthy. So a strong field will always feed the weaker. So your stronger field will always feed the weaker, and you'll not be impacted by negative emotions, which is now weaker than yours. So this is how we immunize ourselves in a sense, just like the plants don't take on the pests. So becoming the master of your own emotions is the first step to helping yourself. And I think this is all something we need to start just practicing a little bit, because now you create a different reality. You create a different reality for yourself, and now you're strong and you can give. And now you can give to others, and now you can flow those fields of peace. And I know it was a pretty short lesson, but I think it's a pretty important one. So I will take some questions now. If anybody has any.
Anybody?
Beautiful presentation, Lisa. Thank you very much. It's definitely a lot to contemplate what you've put up here and to hold and begin to do the personal work.
Yeah, I think, we have to just all start doing the work, and there's no quick fix, because we've got to understand that we're the creator and take responsibility for ourselves. And that's often the hardest part. As soon as you can get over that, we start to build our own fields and help those around us, and it just builds and builds and grows.
Yes, I agree so much here. It seems to me that an aspect of gratitude that one brings to a situation, when a situation is bothering one and one feels bombarded or challenged, and you can feel that you're judging or you're having expectations, you can feel that tension is there. As you look at that same situation with gratitude, what am I grateful for in this situation? It can almost change instantly.
Because every situation is something to learn.
That's an interesting word, gratitude, and that's come up several times, as in a couple of previous workshops as well. And I wonder if we look at the word gratitude, do we have gratitude, or do we? It's more like we give gratitude. Gratitude is like an active emotion. It's we give gratitude. It's not just we feel gratitude, I think, but that we can actually give it and direct it to some extent, it seems. So if that's true, then that's a part of what I think we're becoming like we talk about the energy generator, the plasma energy unit, for example, and that's a self-standing, self-sufficient generator. Well, perhaps we're becoming self-sufficient generators ourselves, and we're putting out this gratitude. It's a form of love, essentially, but it's gratitude. So it's put out as a field, and that others can feel that because they receive that gratitude from, it's an exchange.
But to have gratitude or to thank means you have to acknowledge that that person is there, and you thank them for their contribution to what they're giving to you, and so you're giving back, and it's that flow again, an acknowledgement, because just acknowledging that somebody is important and has something important to say or do is what we need to do, because everything is part of the whole.
Well, that's the thing that I'm thinking about it. It's not like thankfulness is something that might occur if someone, does something nice for you or whatever. You might feel thankful, but gratitude might be a different level where it includes the totality, like you're just saying. It's the bigger picture, and it's like an emotion that gets generated rather than just receptive to, rather than just a feeling that you get from doing something good for someone else. The gratitude might include gratitude for just being alive, and gratitude to the entire planet, or to the whole universe, or
even a bad situation, because sometimes bad situations teach you the best lessons.
Exactly. So it may not be toward another person, is what I'm saying. It's a different level with gratitude.
I heard somebody trying to say something there. Who was that? And please come and join.
Hello, this is Klaus again. Hello all together. On Friday, we go into this field, and we want to build up more and more. And there are 4 different parts, and one of these is gratitude. And we have so-called sensory neurites in our heart. These are special cells. I think these are 40,000. This is the neuronal network in our heart. And we come close. When we come close to this, then we come in this field of gratitude, of appreciation, to care of others, and then this wonderful feeling of the compassion. And that's the next step what we go into. It's so fine that you bring it on the table. It's wonderful, very nice. We are in resonance, we are in this field. Thanks.
Thanks, Claire.
There is a thought in an aspect of what one might call forgiveness. So when you're in a situation in life with the world around you, or with another person, and you feel that something is being done to you or has been done to you, and you bring forgiveness to it. So there's this aspect of forgiving a situation or another person. My sense is that forgiveness is a taking. It's a very personal thing. You're forgiving to relieve yourself of a burden. But when you when you take that, then the next step is to be grateful to that person, to be grateful for life, to be grateful for the world around us. That takes forgiveness to a higher level, and it begins to flow out, and you begin then to give through the grateful, or the attitude of gratitude.
I think forgiveness, though, when you look at it, you need to have been felt like something has been done to you to need to forgive in the first place. And I find that often I'm becoming maybe a little bit, it's not that I forgive less, it's that I don't get to the point where I get that aggravation to have to forgive somebody, because when I look at somebody and I see the way they're acting, I often stop taking it personally now, because I look at them and say they're on their journey. What is their perspective in this situation? And not to get emotionally pulled by the whatever negative things are coming up. And then there's, you know, because you're needing to have some kind of aggravation before you think, oh, well, I need to forgive that aggravation. So I try to get the point where I'm not aggravated in the first place. And as soon as you start just looking at somebody else's perspective and why they might be doing something, and yes, they might not be doing something that's appropriate, but it's not for us to get aggravated about that. It's for us to maybe help them in their situation, to elevate them so that they're not doing what they are doing. If you know what I'm trying to.
I agree with what you're saying, Lisa. One of the things I'm speaking to is that we tend to have experiences in our lives that we plant in our bodies. We're actually carrying them somewhat unconsciously, things with our parents, very often with a relationship or a marriage that ended up in divorce, things that cause these diseases have not advanced to the level in which you're working with them. And so when you feel this coming up, or when a person feels it coming up, or somebody's name is brought up, and you feel this tension, almost a hatred, or these things that you placed in your first circle on your first slide, that's the place where one can move into this process of forgiveness and then moving into gratitude. And once that's cleared, one can maintain their fields, like you're speaking of, to not allow the tensions to come up in the future.
Yes, no, that's very true. And it's not a case of having to go to psychotherapy for 10 years and continually scratch up rubbish. It's a case of literally looking at it in the eye and being able to let go. Let go of those emotions. You know, I went to university and I studied psychology. And by the time I left, I thought, oh my God, I don't want to do this, because you're just keeping people in a cycle often. Why can't they just release it? So, you know, it's a different approach in a way to having to constantly dredge up. You know, constantly dredging up things is not the way. You just need to look it in the eye and it can be let go. I know it's easier said than done, but, you know, we've got to try and work on these things. Because we are the creator, of course.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm Mr. Paka Ageu from
You're
Keshe
kind of faint. Can you speak up a little?
Okay, I'm Paka from Keshe, Togo.
Yes, welcome. Go ahead.
Okay. I want to thank you for your teaching.
You're faint
But
again.
I have
Adjust your mic.
Hello.
Can you readjust your mic?
Hello.
Okay, that's much better. Keep it right there.
Yes, carry on.
Okay. I have just a question. I understand that we have to, if you want to elevate our soul, we have to give a lot of love. But for me, physically, I'm not able to understand exactly what it means. Give a love, give from soul, because we are trying every day, but it is not so simple for the moment to understand. I want to know if you can please give us a special teaching concerning the love, because everybody think that he's in the right way, but when I'm listening to you, it is not exactly the same, because there are two levels in physical and concerning also the soul of man. Physically, it is not so clear. So I want to specify one more time that if it is possible to give us one day a special teaching concerning what is love, so everybody will be able to understand things.
Thank you. I will try to come up with something for you. Just the short answer here that I can give you now is that what I try to practice very often is, you know, that feeling when you look at your child or somebody really special to you, you know, that feeling that comes inside. So now all we have to do is just look at the rest of the world, just look up and around and send it out. That's all you have to do. And you don't expect anything back, and you don't know where it lands. It just goes where it needs to go. Even if it goes to the end of the universe, it will find its match somewhere. That is all that you need to do. That's the short answer.
I have a short answer too, which is most of us know what the word give means, and most of us know what the word soul means. So you put them both together and it's give from the soul. Pretty basic. And if you don't know what either one of those two words mean, then you have to start looking inside yourself and investigating, interacting with others, finding out more about how to give, what soul means, what does physicality mean, and starting to differentiate everything. But almost everybody knows give and soul, or you could say give and essential self, or give and, you know, the God within you, or something like that. But they can make a connection between giving and the soul, which is something in the center. It's in the, you know, it's deepest within us, basically. So it's, some people say, from the deepest part of your heart, you know, you're giving from your heart. And for different people, that might look or feel different as well. But I think a good place to start is just with the simple, basic words, give and soul. And Mr. Keshe laid this out for the core group at the very beginning. And, you know, he said, your job is very simple. You just give from the soul. Okay, any questions? Let's go on. And it was, okay, well, how do we do that? Well, you just do it. That's the thing about it. Just try it, do it. If you're not happy with what you're doing, then keep learning, keep trying different things and interacting with others to find out more about what you need in order to connect with that part of yourself, which can give from the soul, in my opinion, anyway.
Thanks, Rick. And you know,
maybe,
sorry.
Maybe compassion speaks to that in some situations, Rick.
Well, sometimes that evokes it in us. For example, there might be particular situations on the planet. One that comes to mind is the 300 people that were killed recently in a terrorist action and by the Sinai and so on. 300 Sufis, and to me that struck me in my heart, and I, you know, felt some reaction to that. It's like I felt it happening before I heard the news about it. I felt something happen through the day, and even before I heard the news, I just knew something was up, and I just gave from my soul. I just give from my soul. When you feel that any situation, you can automatically give from your soul. And I think Mr. Keshe gave an example one time where there is a funeral procession driving by, and there was a casket, and he just gave from his soul to that person, that being that had passed, that was indicated from that coffin and so on, just to give from his soul, and they would take what they need from it, and it would be a field interaction. That's just something you do when you believe that someone may be in need. Whether they actually get that or not is not so important. You put it out there and allow it to be available to wherever it needs to go, and you don't worry too much, like was just mentioned, that you don't worry about where it goes and if it gets there correctly and so on. You just do it, and there's no other consideration about it. It's all sort of happens all in an instant. Poof, done. Okay. And then but sometimes having that emotion happening first can help direct it or help bring it up in a more pronounced way. Sometimes just in the comfort of our couch, and we don't tend to think about giving from our soul so much, and we don't tend to have a necessity for it so much. But if you have someone that you love that's in pain or suffering or something, then we tend to give in that circumstance because it gets brought out of us more easily.
Maybe when we give from our soul, we're giving to the soul of the situation. So we give from our soul, then it's received by the soul of the situation, and the soul of the situation then feeds back into the situation. Or we give from our soul to another person, it touches their soul, and their soul then gives back to the awareness or the consciousness or the physical aspect of that person.
Can I come in here with something that's typical of me, kind of off the wall, I guess? This is Mario.
Hi, Mario.
I see this sort of a pattern. I noticed that, I've mentioned this a couple of years ago about mosquitoes, when everybody was trying to figure out how to use GANS materials and reactors and all to create a condition where the mosquitoes cannot live. So if that spreads, then when millions of people are doing it, billions of people are doing it, then we can wipe an entire species off the planet of the Earth. We can do that with the fruit flies. We can do that with whoever we like or don't like. Why are we talking about only humans? I don't know. I don't mean it as a criticism. It's an observation. We're talking about, giving to the souls of the people that died, giving to the souls of this one, giving to the souls of the kings. Yes, I agree. I don't have a problem with that. But what about giving to the souls of the cockroaches? They don't deserve it? See,
you can give to whatever you want, though, Mario. That's the whole thing about it. It's the beauty about it. We're just talking about giving to the situation, for example, and that's often the case. You don't give necessarily to an individual, and it's like as mentioned earlier, it's from soul to soul. So you're going from your center to another center of a situation or another being or a group or a government or whatever level that you're able to interact with. And I know this mosquito thing has come up before, and it's an important thing is, if you're, there's an example, if you're in a room by yourself and you're, somehow locked in there for eternity and you have a single light bulb and a single mosquito, what do? And, it might be advisable to learn how to live with that other being rather than to eliminate it. And part of the thing also, you mentioned eliminating these species and so on. I don't think that was the idea. It was more of creating the fields that would not make it desirable for them to be there. So they would find their own field somewhere else that would not include the fields around where you're trying to create a, you know, a safer haven for humans or whatever.
Well, but they need blood first. They don't need the blood. They need the fields of the blood. So if we decide to allow them to have the fields of our blood, then they won't need to bite anybody and they don't become pests. Then they don't pester us. They become no different than butterflies to us. It's our not wanting to give them what they need. In other words, we look at what we need and how we can create conditions where the others, well, we don't care whether they get what they need or not. Let them find their own way. I mean, is that really ethical behavior? Is that how you're going to?
That's not the way in the Keshe Foundation, though. We are here to serve and not to be served. That is the motto of the Keshe Foundation, not we are here to serve ourselves. That's nothing to do with it. So I don't know if all these people you talk about, the people I run into in the Keshe Foundation are very much, even people that have just heard a few words from these teachings, seem to be very much into the things we talk about. They get, you know, touched in their soul. They realize that they have a connection with others and so on. So I think that's important to recognize that that's out there. That attitude.
No, I didn't mean it as a criticism. And of course, this is the Keshe Foundation ethics. I'm just talking about us on our level here. I mean, not just this group, but humans in general. I mean, I haven't heard
who are the humans in general, though? The ones you hear about in the news? Or
no, I mean the ones
in an alley somewhere, or where are these nasty humans?
No, no, I mean human behavior in general that comes into the Keshe Foundation. And it's that behavior. In other words, I haven't seen anybody come up with a cockroach health unit or try to help.
Well, you know, there's so many people. Wait a minute, Mario. There's so many people that are out there helping animals with plasma products. There's so many people out there that are helping the vertical people, what we know as plants and trees, with the plasma products. We were just looking at that just a few minutes ago from Gatua. I don't understand. Is that not helping the bugs and mosquitoes, and isn't creating a better environment for all concerned? When he talked about the bugs that were going into the apples there, instead of rotting the apple, they weren't able to grow perhaps in that environment. They tried to, but they didn't find it their place to be. So they'll move on to somewhere else. And meantime, those apples are more desirable for those that prefer apples that don't have holes and bugs in them.
Well, like I said, I did not mean to criticize. I was just thought I saw a point that I wanted to make. But I mean, of course, you're right.
I agree with you that humans are, you know, generally speaking, look at what we've done on this planet. If we include ourselves in as all humans, and especially if you start looking at all the news articles, all the terrible things humans are doing to other humans and so on, let alone the terrible things they're doing to other bugs and so on. So, I mean, look at the bees, just as an example. What have humans done with bees? We've practically wiped out the many species of bees through our actions. I could say our, but I am not part of the ones that are destroying the bees, so far as I know, yet we're all connected through this soul connection. So what can I do? How can I help with that? Well, if I direct my attention to it, I might want to help elevate the souls that are involved in that situation so that they have a greater realization of what they're doing and they make, better decisions and so on. And there are things that can be done that way. but I start to take issue when we automatically start lumping all the humans together when there's so many people now. I think there's a major transition. I think we've already gone past the point of no return where we have this huge transition on the planet where there is this force of love that's coming in so strong and so persistent, and it's a grassroots grown from the bottom up, just like the nano layers are. And it's not a top-down thing. It's not directed from the top and imposed. We're not putting the layers on from up top. It grows from its own base. And I think that's the big difference, and it's happening. And I know you're part of it too, Mario, so it's all good.
Also, I find it's our perception of what's around us that changes, because now that I start to walk around, for many years, I felt quite isolated from my fellow human beings because I didn't like the way the world was. And I used to hide away here on the farm and not want to actually go out into society really, because I felt quite alienated from it. But now that I'm prepared to go and walk around and just look at people and celebrate the fact of, that we're all in this together, suddenly my perception of people is different. And so, so the world is different for me, and that makes a difference to the rest somehow. So that's why we've got to start from our own perception of things too. I don't hide under my lectures anymore.
Thank you. Let me also add that for Mario, we are already thinking very much about pests, what we call pests, insects, whatever they are, viruses. Using plasma in agriculture, we are not killing plants. We are not using herbicides. We don't use pesticides. In other words, we have completely changed from fighting with bugs, so to speak, to working with them to learn how nature operates on its own without all these poisons. And most of them came from the wars. The war technology brought about creation of, when they knew how to use nitrogen for bombs. Then when they didn't have a lot to sell, then they created nitrogen fertilizers. But nitrogen is available naturally. It's available, and that's what plasma does. When CO2 in CO2 liquid plasma creates a link with the cohon, it brings the cohon to the proximity of the plants so that they can continuously feed from cohon. That way they don't need to be shot at with given doses, like you spray bugs. And the bugs, when that cohon is available in the neighborhood of the plants, that also means the pests themselves, what we know as pests, the bugs and the viruses, either feed from that plasma or the conditions are created that they don't come there. So we already take a lot into consideration. We take bugs, we take the cockroaches, to use your example, into consideration when you use plasma, because we are not poisoning anything. We are just copying the natural science. Thank you very much.
It could be also, Mario, that when there's a demand, there's something that comes to meet the demand. And I think with pests, even with tumors, even with things like that we get in our body, if we go to the soul of the tumor and we honor it, it is serving. It only knows how to serve. The pests only know how to serve. They're coming into a situation to bring it into balance. A tumor thinks that it's serving by doing what it is doing. So when we, with our soul, communicate to that soul, and we bring that into the awareness, you can even speak to it. With a situation like the pests, when we create an environment that's healthy, we're also communicating the pets that you're not needed. You know, you're not needed in this situation. Thank you very much. And your presence is actually detrimental to the growth and well-being of the situation, of the plant or the person. And it'll tend to back off, or it'll tend to disappear. If it's not needed, it won't reproduce. So I think with our consciousness, as we create a field of health with the plasma technology or with our own wishes, then the pests in those situations disappear. They're just not needed.
Thanks, Nicholas. Anybody else, or are we ready to wrap up today?
Hi, it's Rui from UC member. Yeah, I would like to thank you all. You are great to listen to you. Liza, thank you for your teaching. It was great. Marius, thank you for your observation. This is a really concern that we should always keep in mind. You are not here only for humans. You are humans, okay, but from the soul, you should defend of all beings, of kind of beings. And to give a little more further an idea for the gentleman of Togo, what he asked, and was answered very well from Lisa and Rick and others. I will keep in mind, if you are a creator of your own universe, if you want to create something, when you give from yourself, so from your soul, to keep your creation alive, that is the giving soul, the giving love that makes the life. So I hope this can help you to understand. So you care of your creation. That's it. Thank you all. You are great. Thank you.
Thanks, Rui. Yes, and we're creator of those fields of peace, and so you just need to keep them alive all the time.
You will understand everything. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments, or are we going to wrap it up for the day? Okay, Flint,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna.
I think we should wrap up here now.
Yeah.
A little bit longer today than normal, but there is certainly lots of good stuff covered.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. That was lovely, and it was great to chat with you again, and we'll see you again in a few weeks' time. And Rick and Flint, do you want to
Thank
take
you.
us out? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Yes, thank you everyone for coming today. We'll be continuing on next Monday again with part 11. And we'll end with a little bit of music here. This has been the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute public teaching in English for Monday, November 27th, 2017. Part 10 of the Understanding Plasma Science series. We'll see y'all next week. Bye for now.